What up, y'all? Daniel Augustin here, and I want to talk about my guest star episode on Grey's Anatomy. I never chose to talk about this because I don't like to talk about my wins. I'm really using this platform as an opportunity to express myself more, share some of my wins, some of my experiences along the way. When I say the word experiences, sometimes that really means losses, things I've learned from, and they've become experiences now that I've grown from. This episode in particular was, I would say, maybe the most life-changing moment I had when it's come as it pertains to acting in this industry. And the reason why I say that is because I moved here in December 2020, like at the height of COVID. And before I moved, I had a manager who was in LA. At the time, I was in Atlanta with my wife. And I had only a bunch of co-stars, web series stuff on my resume. And I can't wait to make a video about like that entire relationship with that manager and the agent that I had at the time. But I was trying to get some more work, even if it was just as a co-star. I was trying to get to the recurring co-star level. I just wanted to work more consistently. I wanted to feel like a professional. Yeah, I wanted a guest star. Yes, I wanted a series regular. I was always talking about those and bringing those up to my manager, but was never really getting seriously considered. And my manager at the time told me, you're going to probably need to book another 5 co-stars before you're a real viable option to book a guest star. I took a day just sitting with myself thinking about that. I didn't like that she said that to me. And so the next day I fired her. That's why I'm doing this podcast, is because I don't think actors give themselves the gall. They don't have the balls sometimes to do what it is that they genuinely need to do. They don't understand that they're the entrepreneur of their business, of their life. They don't understand that they're the ones with the keys. They're the ones driving. And so we forget it because sometimes we have somebody else that seems like they're steering the ship. We got a manager or agent who just seems like they know so much more than us, but they can't. They know what they know, but they don't know everything. And so this was the experience right here that really woke me up and was like, bro, you're in charge. You're doing your part. You are handling your part, and it's important that you are. Because if I didn't make that decision, if I didn't fire her, I never booked this role because I had to be in Los Angeles to do this role. So now here's a quick backstory, and then I want to show you the self-tape, and then I'm going to show you one of the actual scenes that I had on set. So I moved to California December 2020. I booked this role around April, and I got the the breakdown that I received. It was on Tuesday, February 9th. My wife and I got here like December. So I'm talking like 2 months into my time here in LA. This is the first role I booked while being out here. I received this call sheet, this breakdown of February 9th. It was a Tuesday. It was 4:28 p.m. And this wasn't even a 24-hour turnaround because it was due the next day at 10 a.m. So this is essentially like, it's essentially like an 8-hour turnaround, because within 8 hours, I'm already looking at midnight. And by the time it gets to midnight, it's hard to do self-tape sometimes, because if you got to make noise and you're sitting there in a neighborhood or somewhere in close quarters, you might be disturbing the peace a little bit. So I could call this a 24-hour turnaround, but it was due the next day at 10 a.m. And it was already past that. So essentially, it's like a 16-hour turnaround, something like that. I had already been watching this show. I loved this show. I was a very big fan of Grey's Anatomy, and I'm talking about from the very first season. So I was very rooted with the show. I knew the show. As soon as I got the email, I remember telling my wife, I just got an audition for Grey's Anatomy. And she was shocked. I was shocked. Didn't necessarily know what kind of work I would get with the new manager that I had at the time. And so when he sent me this, I was like, this dude is serious. I immediately got the script. I went on my balcony. This was something that I always did, and I still do on occasion. But I would go on my balcony, and I would just sit with the script for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, maybe even an hour, depending on how tedious the script was, how many pages. And I'm just walking back and forth. I'm getting the body language of the character down. I'm learning the story. I'm giving myself information. I'm creating information for the character, essentially, and I'm just storing it in my head. I don't always write notes on the script. Sometimes I do, but not always. Essentially, I'm just living with the script for a bit. And then I came back inside. I told my wife, let's do this. And it went great. The character that I was performing, his name was Chris Tracy. The backstory is his son is going through some heart issues. heart failure. And it made me emotional too, because my dad passed away from heart failure, but his son is a baby. He's going through heart failure. And you know, the dad and the mother are sitting there watching over their son, and the dad is just emotional, and he's telling his son they got to do like this heart procedure on his son, and it's just going to be very dangerous. And essentially they might lose the son. Chris Tracy and his wife, they might lose their son. And so you know, the script says that, you know, the character cries or whatnot. And that could be challenging. So that's something that we could talk about in this video, but that could be challenging anytime you're crying for a scene. You want to be able to cry, but at the same time, you also need to be able to cry in character. So you don't want to get so caught up in the fact that you got to cry that you just cried the way you cry and it doesn't fit the character, the story, etc. So I had 2 different scenes. I sent in 2 takes for each scene. I think they asked for that. If they didn't, I sent that in though, because it's important for, in my mindset, it's important for casting directors, especially in a scene like this, to see you can do it again, because you might be asked to do it again on set. And if it's a scene where you're going to cry, they need to know you could do it again, because if they don't get everything on that first take, which nobody ever does, not really, not in a scene like this, not on a show like this, they're going to need you to run it back. And that did happen on set. And so we did the scene. I'm going to show it to you right here in a second. We did the scene, sent in 4 different submissions, 4 different takes, essentially, and heard back. If I'm not mistaken, I heard back like the next day that I got pinned. So it happened and it went by very quickly. So without further ado, let's watch the self-tape that led to me booking the role, the guest star on Grey's Anatomy. You want to remove her heart?
Just part of it. Then we place the machine, which will function like the part we removed. I promise this is Veronica's best hope.
We want you to do it. Can we say our goodbyes? Just in case. I want you to be okay. I want to teach you to swim. I want to take you to hockey games. I want to introduce you to all the Disney movies. But if we don't get to do those, things, I just want you to know how much we love you. You've already given us a lifetime of joy, and we will always love you.
In my younger days, I was a fighter.
I want to teach you to swim.
In my younger days,
I want to take you to hockey games.
things didn't go my way. I strike
But if we don't
get
to do those things, I want you to know how much I love you. How much your mom and I love you. You've already given us a lifetime of joy.
I'm so sorry, Chris, but we really need to go.
Trade my freedom for a steady hand now. But I wouldn't trade the lessons I learned. No, I wouldn't change a thing.
All right, so that was straight up from self-tape to set. You look here on the breakdown, it says specifically, it says specifically, note for the roles of Chris and Holly, they are the emotional touchstones of this episode. Authentic emotion is crucial to their scenes, as they have been living in a medical nightmare. They are constantly at the emotional precipice. Very important information. Sometimes all the information you need is right there in the email. And then you add in the rest of the flavor, the blood, the veins. You pump that into the character. So that character is a real person. And I was really proud of this scene, this work, this opportunity. And so I did not do any vlogging on set because I didn't do any vlogging on set because I wasn't really comfortable doing that. It's taken me some time to get comfortable doing these extracurriculars on set because when I got here to Los Angeles, I just wanted to focus on the work. I just wanted to be hella professional. I really don't do too much with my social media like that right now. Even though I have hella content that I do want to share, sometimes it takes some effort for me to get there to sharing it because I can judge myself quite a bit, and so that's something that I've been working on and am working on consistent, day in and day out. So I don't do all that stuff. I don't always get on my vlog on my phone and I'm Instagramming everything. I wanted to focus on the work. I wanted to be ready. This was going to be the most that was like, at that time, I should say, at least, that was the most challenging scene of my career, and maybe still to this day, because I had 4 or 5 scenes in this entire episode, and the first few scenes were shorter, and the reason why those scenes were challenging, I would say, is because I had a mask on, and I still needed to be able to show and give this emotion. And that was challenging. I've never done that before. I've never practiced with a mask on how to perform. And so this is all you're getting when you get the mask on, so everything is different. Everything has to just be not just in the eyes, but up here. And that's hard to really do a lot with just, it was frustrating. Honestly, I was really upset about that. I was happy that with that scene in particular that I just showed, that I got a chance to take the mask off. I was very happy about that because it was just a bit too inhumane for me. I mean, all of COVID was inhumane, So I'll say this was the most challenging thing though about that scene. The crying was challenging, yes, but the most challenging thing was the scenes that I had beforehand, before that scene, they all happened at the beginning of the day. And whenever you shoot at the beginning of the day, you got as much time. You don't feel as pressed. Everything is on time as far as the call sheet goes, so there's like no real pressure. But after lunch, they had a scene to do, and the scene they had to do was in the OR. So that scene, I mean, they're just spending extra time on that scene because those OR scenes are crazy. It's scalpel, lunge, yeah, things are happening. They're shooting that, they're shooting this, they're shooting up top. So they spent a bunch of time on that scene. So I'm sitting there in my trailer. They told me that I was going to be going back out at, so-and-so time or whatever. And that's not what happened. And so in my mind, I'm kind of going stir crazy a little bit because I'm starting to think maybe I'm not going to get to do this scene today or what have you. I'm just sitting in the trailer, which is one of the most challenging things, the hurry up and wait aspect of filmmaking, sitting there in the trailer and not really doing anything. I always want to bring something to do. One thing I brought with me in particular was my journal. I was writing in my journal like crazy. I was writing about certain people that I had met on set. I was writing about my experiences talking to the director, speaking to Debbie Allen. I remember talking to them and just kind of being nervous to speak to them. I felt like, I booked a guest star, but I felt like a co-star when it came to my communication skills because I just didn't feel like, it's not that I didn't feel like I belonged. It's more so that I didn't feel comfortable. I felt like I got work to do, and I don't want to get caught up in being so giddy that I'm in y'all presence that I don't focus on my work, and so I think that's part of my inexperience, essentially. Now to this day, I still show up and I still go through my entire regimen, hair and makeup, everything before, wardrobe, before getting to set, in a pretty serious way, to be quite honest. And it's no longer an experience. Now it's just straight up choice. I might vlog a little bit, but nothing too serious, nothing about stunting and just for clout. No, I know I got work to do, and I know that time is money on set. If it's hurry up and wait and we finally shooting, I can't have people now upset because I don't know my lines, or I'm not hitting my mark, or I can't do what I need to do. Anyways, they took forever. And then finally somebody came to my trailer and I thought we were getting ready to shoot. It was the director, and he just had like some stuff for me just to kind of hold me over. He gave me a wallet that had a picture. He gave me a wallet that had a picture of, if I'm not mistaken, the woman who was going to be playing my wife. He also gave me a ring to put on my hand. He gave me like a gold ring, a gold band. And he just wanted to kind of ground me a bit more in the character and give me something that was more physical and real, something I can touch. I never pulled the wallet out, but I knew it was in my back pocket. So something that can just create more realism, for me. And I appreciated that. The director was one of the actors who was on the show, Giacomo. I can't pronounce his last name right now off the top of my head, but he spent many seasons on the show. He's done really great work on that show. So I really appreciated that interaction that I had with him. And I think his interaction did help me because I didn't have much interaction for him, unfortunately. Not until I was done with all of my work. Anyways, he left and I thought I was getting ready to go out there. That's not what happened. Ended up waiting another 2 hours. So like I said, I had my journal in there. I was just writing. I was writing about when I met Debbie. I was writing about meeting Giacomo. I was writing about my character. I was writing about my dad who passed. And I was just writing all these things to ground me more in what was to come, what I was about to do, how I felt about my dad when he passed because of his congestive heart failure, and how that correlates with how I feel about the character and what I'm getting ready to do. Anyways, so I say all that to say, finally, somebody comes in, they knock on my door, they say, hey, we're getting ready to go out there on set. So now we go on set. They let me know we have essentially 1 hour to knock out 3 scenes. They spent about 20 minutes knocking out one of the scenes, 20 minutes knocking out the other, and then we finally get to do that scene right there that I just played. This was the craziest feeling I had. And I mean, I'm used to moving like that because of some of the work that I did when I first started with Lori Wyman, a casting director from South Florida. She used to train us like that. She'd give us scenes. She'd say, go walk away with that and come back in 10 minutes and put it on tape. So I'm accustomed to doing it quickly. I don't mind that. It was just that I'm getting ready to do Grey's Anatomy quickly. I'm getting ready to do this emotional scene quickly. I got to cry on cue, on demand, when y'all want, after we knock out this, that, and the third, and it's got to be like this. And the only reason why it's got to be like this is because they spent all that time on the OR scene. This was the emotional scene, the scene that in the breakdown, they say this is an emotional touchstone. They've been going through emotional hell, and essentially, now I'm getting rushed to give my emotions. Freaked me out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And so, anyways, knock out those other 2 scenes, and we get to the emotional scene. And I tried to give myself a moment. There was like a song that I really like to listen to. So I had a headset with me, headphone, just, earbud. And I was just listening to it just because it just soothes me. And it's hard to get into your vibe when you're on set. It's so many damn people on set. You got the crew walking around. Sometimes they trying to talk to you. You got background actors. Sometimes they trying to talk to you. The main actors. Sometimes you want to talk to them. There's so many different things going on set that it's hard to really feel like that guy, that parent who's going through this emotional hell, and to be genuine about it. So that's why sometimes I got my earbud, because I just need to find a way to isolate certain things so I can get in the zone I need to get in. You see it all the time. If a guy is in the NBA, the NFL, these guys got their headphones on. They're trying to get into that space. They're trying to get into that zone, So I did that for myself. And here was the craziest part. This was the part that probably tripped me out the most and upset me the most, to be honest. They didn't have a real baby. I was shocked. I was so shocked. They had this doll in there. I've watched Grey's Anatomy. I've watched so many hospital shows. I'm a big fan of New Amsterdam. I did a quick co-star on The Resident. I watch all these shows. These people be having real babies, but because it was COVID, they didn't have no real baby. I'm telling you right now, I didn't know what the hell I was confused. I'm like, what are we doing here? And I asked the director about the baby. He's like, don't worry. We're going to add in some VFX. It's going to look great. You got to just believe people. You got to believe people. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, whether they do it or don't, or whether they do it to this level of excelling or what have you, I still got to do my job. So now not only am I getting ready to perform this emotional scene, now I'm getting ready to do this scene while looking at this doll. But that's the beautiful thing about acting. Acting is all about these imaginary circumstances and you turning them into real circumstances, turning them into that. So, and I mean, when I did my audition, there was no baby there. It was just more distracting for me to see a fake baby. As crazy as that might sound, it was more distracting. It was no human interaction. It wasn't like it was. But I'll say this. I think I was able to lean on the stuff I was writing in my journal. I was able to lean on the wedding band that was on my hand. And I've been there. I was in the hospital. I saw my dad pass away, So I remember being in the hospital going through emotional hell. We did 2 takes. They have multiple cameras, and I did 1 take, and they asked me to do it again. And the second part was the hardest. The second take was the hardest because after the first take, they took forever to get the second one up. So I prefer right when I'm done, I like to wipe my eyes completely so my face can kind of freshen up a bit and my eyes can maybe clear up a bit, but I want to still stay in my emotional state as much as possible. But the fact that they took like an hour to do another take, that threw me off again. And they moved me to this room. I'm sitting by myself as they're like moving cameras around or whatever. And I'm sitting there in the room. I said they took an hour, but I think it's more. I think it makes more sense if I say they really took more so like, I'm an actor, so things can just kind of escalate with me. And I'm over here talking about an hour. It was probably more like 15 minutes. It was a lot though, because if I'm doing a self tape, I would never spend that much time in between those 2 takes. I'm doing a take after take. You know what I mean? Anyways, they bring me back out in the room to do the second take. And at this point, man, I was trying to keep myself in that emotional state, but I was just chilling for a little minute. I cut the song back on, trying to get back in that vibe, but it's hurry up and wait. And now they're waiting on me. And I'm like still listening to this song. So I'm like, okay, I can't sit here like this. I just put the song away. In the scene, it said that I'm supposed to be crying when the scene starts. Grey's Anatomy, they sometimes are coming out of commercial and they're coming out of commercial. And so sometimes they want to be able to tell the story as if things were happening on commercial break and we're bringing you back into this world. We're dropping you back into this world. So before the scene started, the director was asking me to let him know when I'm ready. And I'm standing there trying to get the tears out. And nothing was coming out. So this is when it gets harder and harder and harder for them to come out because they're not coming, and you need them to come in your mind and in my mind, and because I need them to come, I need it to happen fast. And I don't think I'm like forcing it or anything. I'm not like sitting there like I am just holding everybody off. I would say he was waiting for me to tell him I'm ready for about a good 10 seconds. That's a long time. All right. So anyways, the director kind of just jumps in and he's like, and I appreciate him doing this. He just jumped in and he said, just start the scene. So I was like, all right, which scared me a little bit, but I forgot that that's how I did it in my self-tape. It's just that the self-tape and the audition were different. The self-tape, they had more of a ramp up into the crying, and the actual scene, it was the third thing I was doing after these other scenes that I had knocked off, and then they did not have that ramp up scene. It just went right into the crying. It was just me direct to the baby, as opposed to my audition where I talked to the doctor first and I'm kind of ramping up, asking the doctor, can we talk to him first and say our goodbyes? Just in case. That is like already a lot of story, and it already creates a lot of backstory. You know what I mean? So before you go and start directing yourself to the baby, talking to the doctor, you're like asking for permission, and that just makes me emotional. That just makes me feel like I don't know what I can do. Can we please do this? It's more like of a helplessness, and you're asking for help versus just starting the scene and you're just talking directly to this fake baby, to this doll. The doll didn't even look real. It wasn't even one of those dolls that like you use in like a birthing class. No, it was just such a doll. It was a doll's doll, Anyways, I start the scene. I'm so grateful. I start the scene after a few lines. It was better to just start the scene because upon starting the scene, and since this was a drama, which I really appreciate doing dramas sometimes as opposed to comedies. Comedies, they're just so like, speed it up. On dramas, you can take your time. They'll cut around and do what they need to do. But I took my time, and after just a few lines, I moved the lines over in a way where I had a new ramp up, a new way in. I gave myself a new place to pause, a new place where I just was lost for words, even though I knew the lines, but I still, for the character's sake, for that story, for that scene, that take's sake, was lost for words, which helped me get into an emotional space where it's like I didn't have the words, so all I could do was cry, and the tears came. I will say, however, since I am a multi-hyphenate, sometimes it's a little hard for me to digest the scenes that I watch that other people do, because sometimes I don't like the edit. So sometimes it's hard for me to watch them, but I have to watch them because I got to cut a reel, and I want to see the work that I did. I'm proud of the stuff that I do. So, it's just hard to sometimes celebrate it as much as I want to celebrate it because I can remember certain moments that happen, or I feel like I could find things that might have happened better, or I might have been able to cut to something a little bit more favorably. So I wasn't crazy about the edit, I felt like the camera angle showed the fake baby a little too much. And I felt like the edit just could have used the ramp up just a smidge more. But listen, man, I'm so grateful, man. I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful because not only is this Grey's Anatomy one of the most popular hospital shows of all time, when it's all said and done, it will go down as one of the most popular hospital shows ever. I'm so grateful because you can't pay for these experiences. You can't pay for a role on Grey's Anatomy. Okay? You can't hijack your agent and hold them hostage and tell them you want to roll on Grey's Anatomy. But faith got me to that spot. Faith got me to that spot because literally 4 months before, I'm on set of Grey's Anatomy in California, shooting scenes on set and in a different home in Pasadena for like the final scene of the episode. I was having a manager in my ear telling me that I'm not viable enough for guest star. I'm just not. I just need 5 more co-stars. This manager was expecting for me to stay in Atlanta and work my ass off to get 5 more co-stars, despite the fact that she wasn't even really bringing in that many auditions for me to even book those co-stars like that. I'm really grateful for the presence of mind that this is my career. And I ain't gonna let nobody convince me of something. And if they do convince me of something and I don't agree with it after the fact, we're gonna have a conversation about it. And something's gonna come of that conversation. There's gotta be change of behavior, change of ideas, change of how we're moving. And there damn sure was a change because my representation changed and my life changed when I booked that role on Grey's Anatomy. I want this kind of success for everybody, every actor who thinks they can, who wants to. I absolutely want them to have this kind of success. So I share this story and I plan to share so many more stories of wins that I've had via self-tape to set and experiences that I've had via self-tape to no set, watching who booked that role and dissecting it from there. As far as crying on camera, I think the last thing I'll say before I wrap this video up is, to me, it was more so about making the situation work for me, despite everybody being there. Making the situation work for me. There's a technique that I learned that I genuinely appreciate in an acting class that I took. It was called the Alexander technique. And the main philosophy behind the technique that I learned that day that I went for 2 days of class, 2 or 3 days, was this. Before I start any take, I'm to say to myself, I have time. I'm really grateful that I tried my best to implement that, and I'm really grateful that I did implement that when I was performing my scene, because I've been there on set when there's moments where I kind of just feel rushed, and I put that back into my work. And this was like the biggest win for me personally, but also the biggest FU to that manager, the biggest win for the me I'm working towards becoming, because you're giving your all to these managers and your agents. They're getting 10%, another 10%, it's 20% for bad advice, for advice that comes from people who aren't even actors, people who don't really know the landscape as well as they say they do. They're people who sometimes just live in this mass submission like mindset. People who don't listen to you when you say, hey, I think I can do better than this. I want to do better than this. I want to move up. I don't want you to submit me on that kind of work anymore. I want you to submit me on this kind of work. And then they sit there and tell you why you can't. I needed that to happen. I needed every single one of those challenges that I experienced on that set that day. I needed to feel like, bro, you're a co-star when it comes to communicating though. You booked this guest star, but every single person you ran into and was talking to, You are totally a co-star. But it was still beautiful, and I think everybody who was on set still showed so much love. I remember when I talked to Debbie Allen, and she was asking me, do I actually have a child? She told me, first of all, she was like, you're doing very beautiful work. I want to thank you. And I was like, I want to thank you. But, she asked me, do I actually have a child? And I was like, no, not yet. I'm a bit nervous about that. I don't think I'm ready for that. And she was like, you have time. It's so funny, with the philosophy of the Alexander technique. But she was like, you have time. Don't worry. She asked me about my wife and whatnot. And it's 4 years later from the time where I actually did that job. And we have a child now. And we actually have a son now. And he's 7 months old. He's going to be 8 months soon. And, moving forward with faith, more faith, less fear, is ultimately the only way to find yourself where you believe you deserve to be, where you believe you can be. And it ain't nobody else who can help you get there but you. You're really going to have to, and I'm speaking directly to whoever needs this, whatever actor is watching this. And if you're somebody else, if you're a producer or a director or a writer or something like that, and you're using this for, picking yourself up and writing that project or shooting that project, then good. But for whatever actor might be watching this thinking that, they can do it too, or they're wondering how I did it or what have you, this is for you for sure. Like, these people can't tell you. These people cannot tell you. Their job is to try to help you. But sometimes you got to focus on what it is you saw, what it is you wrote in your journal when you were deciding how you saw your career going this year. And if what they're saying to you isn't really in alignment with that, I'm not saying you got to be as savage as I was when I fired that woman, but I had an approach. I had a mindset. I had a philosophy behind firing her. I evaluated her all year. Every single time I work with representation, they are legitimately on a 3-month probation with me. After the first 3 months, I'm checking in. Hey, what up? Yeah, so I see we've been auditioning for this, for that, da-da-da. Wanted to talk to you about these other things that, I really been, interested in. And, hey, did you get a chance to take a look at the thing I sent you? I'm talking to them about everything. I'm talking to them about emails I done sent, emails they did not respond to, so on and so forth. We gonna talk. It's been 90 days. Where we at? That's legitimately how I move, and I'll do another video to talk about this kind of stuff. But I had already been working with this woman for a year. I had already flew out to LA, spent my own money, put myself up, spent money taking lifts, living in people's Airbnbs. I'm talking about the Airbnbs where I'm sharing spaces with people. Very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Met this woman, great conversations, but some people will try to mortgage your career and your time on this earth, in this career, just sitting on their roster. And they don't tell you what they don't know because they don't know what to tell you. A lot of them don't know how to be resolution-based, result-oriented. A lot of them don't know. A lot of them are just sitting there thinking that, yes, your headshots are going to pop. And they don't even know what to tell you about your headshots. They don't even know what they see in the headshot. They don't know why somebody else is going to see something in the headshot. So, with that being said, I want to wrap this. If you got to this part of the video, I really appreciate you watching. Really appreciate you kicking it, sticking around this long. Would appreciate it so much more if you messed around and decided to subscribe, man. It would mean the world to me. It would mean the world. Oh, okay. I can't continue. It would mean so. Thank you. No, for real. Thank you so much, though. Till the next time. You dig?